Hey, as is, we're just sitting here. I'm filling at the moment. Our next guest, who's waiting on the phone, is wondering why we're not talking to her. Have you got your headphones organised now?
It's better.
Excellent. As is often the case in this particular program, we play a song, and amazingly, the singer of that song pops up, and it's happened again today. Gyan, good morning.
Good morning. Just happened to be passing through.
It's extraordinary though, isn't it?
It's an absolute delight to introduce one of my favourite former girlfriends, Gyan. Welcome to you.
Yeah, gee, we had a good laugh, didn't we, Rock?
We did have a good laugh.
Yes. So for those playing along at home, as far as I'm aware, Gyan's got much better taste in men than that. It just happens that previous partner was also called Rob Cameron.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know your surname is an anagram for romance, don't you?
Oh, I do now.
Now I'm...
you have just created a whole new life for me, young lady.
Be romance.
Do you mind if I just step away now and throw up? Gyan, how thrilling to have you on the telephone. And my mistake on the telephone number. I'm sorry. I told you. You told me to ring the landline.
No,
anyway.
it's all right. Don't worry. She's here now.
It's been a big week. All right.
Yes. It's always a big week, isn't it?
Now, Gyan, you grew up in Geelong, and so we like to talk to people who have made an impact in the Australian music industry. Or people who have come from Geelong, if they're both, how good's that? And so thank you for popping up and having a chat.
Oh, it's nice to pop back there.
And also thank you for following us on Instagram that you did at 3 minutes to 10 o'clock this morning, I noticed.
Now, Gyan, I suppose the obvious question is, after another chat we had off air about how bloody good this joint is, why aren't you here? Where the hell are you?
Oh, look, Mum and Dad were pretty smart, sort of I called them the boat people. They were 10-pound poms. And they sort of landed at, I think POM stands for Port of Melbourne. Or
all right, yes.
More rude than that, but yeah. So they landed there, and I guess I didn't really fully appreciate Geelong as a child because now I'm hearing that the whole world wants to move there because Melbourne's woken up to what wonderful beaches and proximity to the city there is, and so I think you're being inundated as we are here in Byron Bay. That's where I live. And it used to be a sleepy little town too.
Yeah, well, you've well and truly been engulfed with I think maybe changes. The people have brought changes to the culture of the city. What's good about this is I think Geelong's bigger and it's brighter and more people are appreciating it. But I think it's still got all its old world charm, if that's the right way to describe it.
That's good to know. I don't get back there very much because when your mum and dad pass, it's not a great pool, and also it just brings back very sad memories. So I do have a good cry when I enter the entry zone of Geelong because of the sorrow and the grief related to. I lost my mum when I was quite young, so it's a bit of a sad place for me. Yeah.
Tell us about the music. Where did it all start for you? Were your parents musical? We find a lot of cases with guests that have gone on the industry a bit that they just had music in their life right from day dot.
Yes, I think I did. Yep. Got that sort of Celtic background, both parents being Liverpudlian and but Irish Welsh. So that mix plus Mum and Dad, they were kind of working class and worked really hard, and Dad was a sparky and Mum was kind of an everything sort of shop girl, but they did musical comedy in Geelong. And so on the weekends they'd be there singing, going to wash that man right out of my hair.
Oh, what a classic.
Well, so I used to sit there in the audience and just go, this is fantastic. So my sister got me into ballet very young when I was about 6, and I think the dance world opened my whole head to the classical world.
Tell us a bit about your parents. If they've done that, maybe there'll be people listening that may remember their work in that space.
Oh, it was called the Geelong Musical Comedy.
Oh, creative name.
I know. I mean, it was pretty lo-fi, but they took it very seriously, and Mum never really had a starring role. I think she might have had one line in Oklahoma, but she was in the chorus line.
Apparently the wind comes sweeping down the plains, though.
It does indeed.
So do you remember where those shows were put on?
Good morning, yeah. What was that?
Do you remember where those shows were put on?
Yes, and forgive me, is it the Regent Theatre? God, I can't remember.
Yeah, there was a Regent Picture Theatre out in Paco in Geelong West, I think.
Maybe the Palais?
Palais, that's it. Yep. Yeah, the Palais.
Before he kicked on to become a soccer player,
Yes.
different Palais. Now, their surname would have been, so people who are listening or, who would remember them, their surname would have been?
Their name?
Yeah.
Oh, Phil Evans and Audrey Evans.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they had the same surname. That's creative.
Phil and Audrey Evans. There you go. If you're listening and you're of that vintage of remember the old Palais days, Geelong music comedy, Phil and Audrey Evans. There's great memories.
Send us a text while we're talking to Gyan, and we can wish you pass on your kindness. 0488 877 947. So you were a Matthew Flinders girl.
I was.
Did that mean you were part of the? Is it Sweethearts? Is that what they call it? Or hasn't it been going long enough?
Sweethearts it's 20 plus years.
Yeah,
I reckon.
No, I'm pre that. What's a Sweetheart?
Well, a Sweethearts is a lot of schools, when someone musical comes in as a teacher, they create a band, or sometimes it'll be a brass band, depending on their love. But someone at some stage created a musical group, and it's just been going that long now that there's a lot of girls have really catapulted straight into some pretty high level stuff out of it. They just have a new intake all the time. It's like a glee club, if you like.
Wow.
Out of the school, and highly regarded right around the country.
Wow.
But not quite heard of in Byron Bay, clearly.
It may be. So, get on the Google box and have a look at Matthew Flinders and see how they go, because there's some seriously great talent has been fostered there.
I was very fortunate, Mum and Dad. I was the last born of 4 children, and Mum and Dad wanted to make a difference with me, so they sent me to Matthew Flinders and not Belmont High. And I was kind of really absolutely devastated to leave my friends all behind. But I think the facilities, and as you say, even back in my day, there was a wonderful musical teacher called Bill Miles. He was American, and he played every instrument. And they had a band already, And I remember sitting on top of the lockers looking through the window because I was into dance. I used to stare through the window into that band and go, I want to be in that band. I just didn't have the musical. I was so shy. I didn't open my voice until I left school. So it was, even back then, they had a wonderful facility. They had a great auditorium, wonderful stage, and just the teachers were very innovative and experimental with music and theatre.
I'm just a little bit disappointed, if I can be honest, because we have a lot of people listening who we know are Belmont High students. I would have been so much better if you had said, I went to Matthew Flinders because I was going to get a much better education there than I would have at Belmont. And good morning to you folks who are listening.
Did I not say that?
No, you didn't. No, you kind of danced around that bit. No pun intended.
Chrissy Amphlett, also a Belmont High girl who went before you. Maybe you might have missed an opportunity to coattail through her education.
Exactly. No, she was in the same class as my sister and Dennis Walter.
Yep.
He was in the same class as my sister and my brother. Yeah, my 2 sisters and my brother went to Belmont High. And, I had to sort of ride a bike, and it was a lot longer journey from Belmont to Matthew Flinders. And you know what, to be honest, looking back, I'm sort of glad I didn't have to deal with boys at that stage. I could concentrate.
I think the other thing is too, I found that going to the same school as my brother, there was a lot of comparisons done, and if I was absolutely hopeless in the things he was really good at, and you get this, you sure he's good at it. So if you can go and be independent and be someone totally different, it's nice. So how does someone from Matthew Flinders High School suddenly pop up having a hit single? There must have been a bit of a trip along the way. I'm thinking maybe talent search, maybe somewhere along the way.
Yeah, you're quite right. There was quite a journey before I reached Star Search, but lots of life between that in a very short time. But I did landed in Sydney and landed in bands and discovered my voice and discovered a real passion for writing songs. And the one thing you can be sure of with a band is they're going to break up, except for the Rolling Stones, of course.
Yeah.
And my then partner Rob Cameron suggested that maybe Star Search would be a great entry to the next step. And so I did Star Search. Yeah, I did. And I really am not into competing. I really had this horrible thing. I was like, I don't want to compete. But I made a vow to myself that I would compete against myself. So because I just find that, competition in music, it's such a very, very strange thing. Like when you watch these shows, which I never do because I find them so hard-hitting, these kind of voice shows and everything. It's just, if you put a Bob Dylan on there or a Joni Mitchell, I'm sure they would lose. And, that's what we've been reduced to, these portals of absolute sort of, Big Brother type things. So, I kind of used it to my own advantage, if you get my drift.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine Bob Dylan or Tom Waits turning too many chairs on The Voice.
I'd love to see that.
Because I think that the thing, and I know I'm sounding, there'd be people going, oh, it must be so sad being old. But, I go back to listening to...
The camera, Tom, do you think you can...
shows like Kevin Dennis New Faces and, where people like Liv Mason were discovered, John Williamson were discovered,
yes.
Star Search, call me old-fashioned. I got a feeling that in those days, the thing that won you those prizes was talent rather than a sad story about your upbringing or the fact that, you've got a good marketing department. That's
right. There was no backstory and there was no audience voting. It was a panel of 8 people from the industry. So I think you had one person from, the audience, which it was just a fairer playing field, but it was before the time where you could text in, or cheat, a lot of those sort of cheating texts, which is, probably manipulated by the industry these days. But
allegedly.
They are, aren't they?
Yeah, you just have to throw allegedly in there just in case we get the lawyers on the phone.
I was actually judged by, I remember watching GTK as a kid, and I don't know if you remember GTK.
Oh, vaguely.
It was
Rob would remember. He was in his 30s when that was on.
10-minute music program for the news.
Yeah, I do.
Or Bellbird or whatever it was. And Renee Gayer came on with her band Sun, and my whole life turned upside down when I saw her sing, and I just went, that's what I want to do. And then to have her judging me as one of the judges on Star Search, and then to go back into the green room and have a glass of champagne with Renee Gayer, I was just like, oh my God, this is a legend here. And so you're quite right. It was a very different way of, A&R sort of thing.
And sadly, we lost Renee a couple of years ago, but before that, my understanding was that she was a resident of the town of Geelong West.
Is that right?
She was indeed.
She moved down to this part of the world. So there's a precedent.
Smart move.
Get back here. Now, yes, we I guess first heard of you commercially with the song that we were playing just before we started talking to you called Wait.
Yes.
There was obviously a bit of a jump between Star Search and finding yourself on shows like Countdown. Talk us through that.
I kind of wrote with the winnings of that, which was, considerable in those days, I guess. So I won the grand final and bought myself a home studio. And then I just disappeared for a year and wrote that first album and then shopped a deal. And a friend of mine introduced me to producer Charles Fisher, who was notable for a lot of Australian bands. And kind of quite rock, which I wasn't, that into. But anyway, he had a Midas touch with big hits. And so he did songs like, I'm just trying to think of some off the top of my head, like What About Me,
Yep.
Moving Pictures, Radio Birdman. Some pretty hard rockin' things, Hoodoo Gurus, things like that.
Yep.
And anyway, he worked with me on the first album, and I signed to WEA via his independent company, Trafalgar. And then they chose him and his colleague, Michael McMartin, who was that were partners in that record label, said Wait had the hit thing. Of course, I didn't really think so. I wanted Black Wedding Ring as my first song. And anyway, the rest is history, really. So there you go. Yeah, he really did have that sort of golden touch of how to make a hit.
Because we talked to a number of artists just starting out, and whacking your head against a brick wall because the music industry is not easy to get into. I guess that the Star Search thing opens the door, but then I guess a song like Wait opens up a whole lot more doors and gives you a whole lot more opportunities.
Yeah, and I think I think I fast-tracked. I think a lot of people may get there on their second album or third. I think having a hit single on your debut was quite quick, but also I'd done quite a lot of groundwork in my original band before reaching there. So I think in Australia we're so lucky because we have, we did have such a healthy live scene, you know. So you really cut your teeth with an audience and a band, and you really got to know your craft. I think this country really embraced live music, and there's no better place than learning on stage, you know what I mean?
Well, I think it was Barnsey who said that with Cold Chisel when they first started out, if the audience didn't like you, you'd end up in a fight. I suspect that wasn't quite the state that you found yourself in, but when I grew up in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, Rob is our local Geelong boy. I've emigrated here subsequently, but you know, we had pubs like the Donny Inn. You could rock at the Croc. We had the Southside Six. We had Coxie at the Rocks. We had all these amazing pubs in Melbourne where you'd get a band, you know, come down from Sydney, like, you know, Metal as Anything or In Excess or these sort of bands, come down and they would do 6 shows a week in pubs, sometimes with a different audience, but of course then there are the people who go, no, I'm a Mentals fan, I'm going to follow them around for 6 days to the different pubs in Melbourne. That just doesn't exist anymore.
It just doesn't. And that devotion either. It's a very limited attention span now, isn't it? I remember walking, because I made a shift to England and then I made a shift to America, but I remember walking into a studio in America with a big orchestra. I was making an album over there, and it's kind of like it stayed with me forever. The producer I was working with said, oh, you know, go and sing in the booth live. And I sang this song live, you know, to cut it live. And I remember stepping out of the booth and all the orchestra, you know, beating their bows on the necks of their violins and everything and applauding me for being able to sing live. And it was like a penny drop moment of, well, that's how we do it in Australia. You know what I mean? You would be cut down, but Jimmy's right. You would, you know, it was an acid test, wasn't it? You really did have to prove your worth, and I just love that actually. It's a tough love, but it's true.
Yeah. And I notice also, Rob, I'm going to surprise you a little bit here.
Research.
I did a little bit of research, but you know, you've been able to, with that opportunity, and obviously with an extraordinary talent, to be able to work with some pretty well known names. A chap called Ricky Martin, I suspect, pops up on the list, and Leanne Rimes has covered some of your stuff.
Yes.
It must be, from a young kid from Matthew Flinders High, that must be a bit surreal.
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, living in America was surreal. It really was. I really was in the land of smoke and mirrors. And working with Desmond Child, of course, he's a monster over there. And kind of he pursued me when I was living in England because of one song that he wished he had written, which was a song I wrote called Love is an Army, which Leanne Rimes ended up covering. But yeah, and so, you know, indirectly, because I was working with Desmond and Desmond created Ricky Martin, I got to sing on Ricky Martin's albums as a background singer.
I like to tell people that I've done backing vocals for Paul McCartney, along with 75,000 other people at Marvel, but I didn't get a credit.
Is that you singing along?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, along with the other 75,000 people.
Yeah.
So what are you doing these days, Gyan? Are you out performing?
Yes, we just did a gig 2 weeks ago locally with my partner, who's he's a multi-instrumentalist, and we did a show that's called Punk Guide to the Orchestra. So it's it was sort of like a variety show in a way of letting the audience into sort of, being a witness to what goes on in the studio, and also it was bridging the gap between a lot of classical pieces and a lot of my original work as well, and then a smattering of people that we've mentored over the last 15 years. So yeah, I guess we've had a fully fledged studio where we live as well. So we've produced albums. I did like a decade with Michael Lunig, coming in and out of focus with doing, I interpreted a lot of his poetry into a record called Billy the Rabbit, and that we would take on in and out of festivals with Michael on stage with us until he sadly passed away. But yeah, I'm sort of heading more toward an interest in kind of writing long form, which is a very scary frontier for me because songwriting is very succinct and quite short form, and I'm kind of interested in sort of writing maybe a longer form, more screenplay kind of thing. So I'm sort of doing writing courses and scary things like that. But yeah, I like to sort of like break into ground that I haven't done because I just feel it's more frightening and more invigorating.
Gyan, your songwriting, does it generally come from lived experience, or do you have a very creative mind?
Oh, I think it's more personal, yeah, way more personal. And even interpreting Michael's poems, they sort of felt like they'd lived with me for so long that I, took the liberty of actually adding verses and things into things that were like 30 years old. But I just feel more personal, yeah, more than sort of Tom Waits kind of making up things.
Look out for our upcoming album called I Went Out with Rob Cameron.
Yes, I'll be getting a copy of that. Don't you worry. With that though, if you're going with lived experience, and it is very personal, you might find when you get into the long form writing actually flows pretty easily. Yeah,
it's you know what, it's one of those things. The courses I've done, they kind of run for like 6 or 12 weeks, and it's a Sydney writer's studio. Actually, they're very good, and it's just a muscle, isn't it? It's like it's a muscle that you've got to use every day, and then it just becomes more free, and you have more command of it. It's like anything; you've just got to do it regularly to get what you want out of it. But yeah, there's actually a poet down in Melbourne that works at Deakin University that I've discovered, and she's written a couple of beautiful books recently and won all these awards, and her name's Grace Yee. And if I was down your way, I would be signing up to Deakin University because I'm so enamoured with her work. I would love to be, go to a few of her lectures at least.
Oh, I think you should.
Like Gracie's calling me down to Melbourne. I might, God, maybe I should go down there and, get educated.
Absolutely. Well, we would love to have you down in the southern state at some stage. If you are coming down this way at any stage, Gyan, you let us know. We'll come in and have a chat in the studio because it's just been an absolute delight to spend 20 or 25 minutes with you today and catching up during the week a couple of times as well. Thanks for taking some time out of your Saturday morning. And, yeah, all power to you. I hope it's going really, really well for you up there.
Thank you so much, and it was so lovely to have a visit to Geelong. Thanks, and hello, Geelong.
Hey, if people want to know more, what sort of website have you got going?
What was that, Darren?
What website have you got if people want to have a bit of a look in on what you're up to?
I've got a website that's gyan.com.au, which is absolutely, how do you say that? Asleep.
Dormant.
Dormant, yeah.
You can use that in one of your books if you'd like to.
I do quite a lot of posting on a thing called Substack. So it's Gyan Evans, one word, Substack.com. And Substack it's quite a safe, fertile area for writers mostly. And Patti Smith has a wonderful website. Like Patti Smith has sort of abandoned her website, and Substack's where she lives. And so you get a lot of the great writers on there like Margaret Atwood and George Saunders and everyone, but there's it's just a wonderful area if you want to disappear into a lot of authors' works and interest without it getting too politicised, which, you know, a lot of the social media can be so hard-hitting and so divisive that you end up feeling exhausted. But this one actually gives you a lot of, you know, great information on writers and things. So substack.com, Gyan Evans, and I'll see you there.
And I promised that I didn't put her up to that. I joined Substack 4 weeks ago.
Did you really?
Yeah. I'm in the process of writing a book myself about a thing called Transformagination, and that's the username in there. So
yeah, oh, wonderful.
I've only literally just joined. There's only a couple of posts there, but hey, let's catch up there, Gyan.
Let's swap
Gyan for those of you who are writing that down.
Yeah, Evans.
Yeah, Evans. I think they're across, but Gyan, there's about 15 different ways you could spell it, I suspect.
And there's a famous soccer player in Africa that has my name, Gyan Evans, and he's a wonderful soccer player, but we're different people.
Well, there's a soccer player that we named a place down here, the Palais. But that might be a different Palais. Hey, Gyan, thanks for chatting. We'll chat soon.
Okay.
Thanks, Gyan. Best wishes.
Thanks, mate.